Hadirin yang dihormati sekalian, kini tibalah masa untuk kita ke acara seterusnya. Yang dihormati Dr. Sanath Sukumaran akan menyampaikan ceramah beliau yang bertajuk The Importance of KM for Continuous Improvement. Sebelum itu, izinkan kami memperkenalkan sedikit latar belakang penceramah kita pada pagi ini.
Dr. Sanath Sukumaran merupakan pemegang ijazah sarjana muda dalam bidang Computer Science, Computing and Information System dari Staffordshire University, UK. Kemudian beliau telah melanjutkan pelajaran ke peringkat ijazah sarjana dalam bidang Information Technology di Charles Sturt University, Australia. Seterusnya melengkapkan PhD beliau dalam bidang Knowledge Management dari Asia University, Malaysia.
Kini beliau merupakan konsultan, coach dan trainer untuk Agile Management Consultancy, merupakan Head of NOCO Malaysia serta merupakan Senior Lecturer di Taylor University. Oleh itu, tanpa melengahkan masa lagi, majlis ingin menjemput yang dihormati Dr. Sanath Sukumaran untuk menyampaikan ceramah beliau. Dipersilakan.
A very good morning, salam sejahtera to the CEO, Mr. Muhammad Khairi, division heads, directors and all of you here. Very good morning, and thank you for having me here. From 1998 to 2008, I was at TPM. I always wanted to come to ISN actually. I was working there, but today I think the time is right for me to come. Maybe almost 20 years later, I'm here. So I remember in 98, ISN, it was just set up in 96 if I'm not mistaken. And it was just the beginning, and it was then my journey for knowledge management started. I'm very happy to share with you a very interesting development. KM in the country is taking shape very, very well, and I would like to congratulate ISN for taking this bold step, because very few organizations in this country, especially in this part of the world, has taken such a bold step. So to your organization, I would like to first of all congratulate you. So this initiative, champion on today's occasion, is a very timely initiative. I think I've been doing some research for some time now on regards to high performance sports management, and almost all of the countries I've seen have used knowledge management in the management of high performance sports in particular. So I think you are in the game, and I'm sure you will improve. So allow me to share the next 30 minutes some of the best practices. Now some of you might be wondering the word KNOCO. KNOCO is Europe's largest KM company. So I'm very excited to have been given the sole rights for Malaysia. So which means that we have the benefit of sharing Europe's best practices in knowledge management in this country. So some of the things that you're seeing today, these are materials from KNOCO as a result of doing good consulting work with many, many companies, as you rightfully put it, Doctor, in your talk earlier. So allow me to start the session today. I think I just probably have this. That's better. If only we all knew what we knew. I mean, this is obvious, right? I mean, I know something. Do I know what I know? If only we could find the knowledge that we needed. I mean, when I want it, I can't find. If only we could never forget. These are questions, questions to think about. And there are more questions, does it sound familiar to you? Why do we keep on relearning? Why do we keep on making the same mistakes? How do I know where to find this knowledge? I know there's somebody in this room who has that knowledge, but I don't know who and where to find it. I'm sure I heard someone mention, but now who was it? I can't remember, I don't know. Someone must have done this before. Who? Last year someone, I know someone did it, but I just can't remember, When Mr. Saiful left, this is a name I just put. I hope there's no real Mr. Saiful who left. Okay. Oh, there's one. Oh, two. Okay. That was a good guess. A common name, a Malaysian name. He took all the knowledge with him. Is that possible? Is it possible to take all knowledge with him? Yes, I know. We'll talk about it. It was pure luck I met Mr. Zul. He had all the answers I was looking for. Luck. Zul also got, huh? Okay. Okay. Random Malaysian names, huh? That went very well. How do we repeat that success? Success every time. We made these mistakes in our other office too, or other branch, other department. So ladies and gentlemen, if you're wondering why you are here today, I think these questions will give us some understanding that these are some of the challenges we all face, I face, you face. Hopefully, we're trying to minimize them. I mean, it's not possible to eliminate them, but we minimize them through the application of knowledge management. So I hope that sets the context of the next few minutes of my talk today. Am I okay? Am I too fast? Or? Okay. The big question is why knowledge? I mean, we talk about knowledge management. The first place, why knowledge? I mean, it's an obvious question. I mean, let's understand this. Employees, and Dr. Muhammad Khairi has mentioned very clearly, he is friends to all of you. So which means we are all assets, assets to the organization. Employees have knowledge, you all know that, otherwise you're not going to be hired. Your job description already listed out what you're hired for, which means you have knowledge. And knowledge is an asset, and because knowledge is an asset, it has to be preserved. Now this is the hardest part. This is the hardest part. How do we preserve knowledge? That's where knowledge management comes in, to preserve that knowledge. So that's what we're going to talk about. Now let's look at the definition. I mean, sometimes I don't like definitions, but no choice. We have to look at some definition. Knowledge management is the systematic management. I think you mentioned it very well, Dr. Muhammad Khairi, that we have been doing knowledge management actually all this while. But perhaps now it's time to make it a bit more systematic. So the systematic management of an organization's knowledge assets to create value for the purpose of operational, tactical and strategic requirements. So whatever that may be, that's what we want to achieve. So this is the big definition. Now let me just play a short video for you to understand this a bit better. So like it or not, in ISN we are in the business of managing knowledge. So whatever we do, at the end of the day, it's how we manage knowledge that we see the outcome that we want to see. Right? The question is, where does knowledge come from? I mean, it's obvious it comes from all of us, but generally speaking, we have two kinds of knowledge. We talk about the tacit knowledge and the explicit knowledge. Guess what? Which is the easier one that we can get? Sports Information Center will probably have a lot of explicit knowledge. But what the Sports Information Center wants to do after this is to have more of tacit knowledge. Now the center wants to involve all of us here in the room to increase this explicit knowledge by converting tacit knowledge into explicit knowledge. Because tacit knowledge tak boleh nampak. It's actually in our brain. So how do I know what's your tacit knowledge if I don't convert it to explicit knowledge? So that is what knowledge management is trying to do. But it's not so simple, right? Can I walk to you? Please tell me what you know. Boleh tak? Susah, a bit difficult. So this is the challenge we face. So we need to have some framework, we need to have some policies, we need to change the culture a little bit. That's the hardest part. Okay. So we'll talk about that because today we have a few sessions. We'll go into some of these challenges and what we can do. There'll be some workshop, there'll be some hands-on activities. So I trust that by the end of the day, those of you who are staying on until 5 today will have the feeling of what it means to do KM. Trust me, you will have the feeling of that already. So, let's look at the flow of knowledge, basically. The flow of knowledge. People to people. Like sessions like this, we talk. Basically, we are having that connection, right? Communication. That's the best form of knowledge management. Nothing beats, those days in the kampung, right? People sit down, they chat, they talk to each other. Wow, knowledge management is happening already. No need to have session like this. No need. You sit in the mama stall, you talk to your friend. That is knowledge management. But the thing is, all of us are very busy now. We have our department, our priorities, we have our commitments. We don't have time to meet like we were before. So we need to now talk about knowledge management because we are not doing knowledge management. We used to do. Okay. So we need to know what to do now. Now the other challenge is collecting. So because we are not meeting enough, we need to collect from all of us here in the room. We need to have the knowledge bank. So the Sports Information Center will now become a knowledge bank. Then, once you have got knowledge bank, then Mr. Mushaidi's center will start to organize this knowledge. Organize it. And of course, after organizing, you can start assessing. So ladies and gentlemen, can you tell me which is the hardest part to do? The hardest part, which will make knowledge management fail. Which do you think? I think someone said something. That's the correct answer. Sorry? Collecting. Brilliant. Collecting is the hardest part. Collecting is the hardest part. My entire PhD was about that. Elicitation of knowledge. You can do many PhDs on that because it's very hard to do. A lot of theory behind it, but a lot of things that we can do as well. Okay. So once you collect it rightly, then everything can fall in place. So how does KM stand to benefit ISN, or rather the other way around, ISN to benefit from KM? I actually plan to do a poll, but never mind, since we probably don't have much time. There are a few things to do. I mean, let's look at it. Operational effectiveness, operational efficiency, delivering better customer service, looking at retaining knowledge at the risk of loss. Do we have that? Improved innovation. And obviously, eventually, in this sense, growth is not so much what we're looking at, but in the sense of achieving our targets and KPIs. So these are some of the benefits that we hope to achieve in having KM. Of course, if you ask people like Shell and oil and gas and Petronas, they talk about all this as well. The oil and gas companies are very good at KM. In Malaysia, Petronas is one of the pioneers in KM. And they have to, because that is their core business. And similarly, globally, Shell was the pioneer. And Conoco themselves, the founder of Conoco was from BP. So they established the KM plant in BP, and then they moved on and set up their company in Conoco. So we thought of having a poll, but never mind, let's skip that. So in most cases, the survey done in 2014, when they surveyed about 1,000 companies, they found that the topmost reason for having KM is to improve the operational effectiveness and operational efficiency. So I suppose that's what we want here as well. The main driver is to boost the operational effectiveness and operational efficiency. Now, what does that mean to you? That's when we have the workshop sessions. I've had the benefit of looking at your core purpose, and we will do the alignment between the knowledge activities and your core purpose. We have the session later part. How do you achieve all that? Now, my take to this, I mean, when I did a bit of understanding, a bit of reading and speaking to Mr. Mushaidi, I realized that a few areas are particularly important as far as ISN is concerned. One is that there has to be a culture of learning, because a learning organization is what makes the organization unique, right? The learning organization. That's what makes Google what Google is today, because these are all learning organizations. So we need to start learning. And of course, there's some adoption of and dissemination of best practices and compliance to standards. In this case, maybe IOC standards, some gold standards that we need to comply. But there could be more. So that's why we will do the workshop and find out even more areas that we could look at and tap into for KM. Now the business case, I mean, if at all there is going to be a reason for why we are spending our time here today, there must be a business case. To me, if there's no business case, there's no point doing anything. Right? There must be an ROI that we talk about. Why are we doing all these things? There could be a hard ROI, but in our case, I think it's a soft ROI. Right? We're looking at the soft ROI. But whether it is the hard ROI, which is the cash, and all that, or is a soft ROI, which means your performance, your knowledge distribution, the athlete's performance, achieving your KPIs, these are all the soft KPI, the soft ROI, sorry. We still have to calculate them, right? But the question is, for hard ROI, it's quite easy. We look at dollars and cents, we try to understand it in terms of revenue, cost, compliance, improve productivity, and so on. But what about the soft ROI? Now, this is what I want to talk about. And I think this is what we are interested here to understand. Let's take a simple example. Number of employees, I just plugged a figure. I was told it's about 400 or so. Is that correct? 500. Okay. I had 500, but no man, it's okay, we have 400. You grew faster than I thought. 450 employees, as an example. So let's assume here, hypothetically, a person is earning about 5,000 a month, so 60,000 a year. Okay, assumption, that's a basic assumption. And the time wasted, when I say time wasted, that means this person had to spend approximately about 3 minutes a day trying to figure out what to do, where to get this information, and this is the wasted time. Wasted time, it doesn't mean after 3 minutes or so they get it right. Let's say it's wasted time. And this would translate to, if you look at a year, let's say a year we work 52 weeks. In Malaysia, we have a lot of holidays, so maybe put 50 days. Okay, 50 days comes to about 50 weeks comes to about 250 days. That comes to about 21,000 a year. And if you look at annually, the wastage of a whooping approximately that much money you see here. Now this is opportunity cost, of course, not the cost that you look at in dollars and cents. But then again, my point to you is that's only if the person got it right. If they didn't get it right, then you're losing even more money. Because why? They've got the wrong methods, the wrong practices, the wrong strategies. You never even got what you wanted. So it's dumbfounding to think about this, that if we had invested a good KM practice, a good KM framework in ISN, we could have minimized this perhaps to 1 minute or 2 minutes. Still a saving, right? It's still a saving. So that's I like to talk about this because this makes a lot of sense to people who ask me, why do we need to do this? What's the point? Now, let's try and understand things from a bigger picture. KM implementation approaches. You mentioned, Dr. Muhammad Khairi, that this is a bottom-up approach. So that is one way to do KM as well. You can do bottom-up. Okay, you can do bottom-up. That means you start from someone who has an initiative. That person will speak to the top management that, okay, we need to have KM, and then you take it on. Okay, or it could be top-down, could be a directive, could be mandated. Like I know JKR, we've done some work with JKR. JKR is top-down. Okay, they have, we've done a couple of programs with them. They're pretty much top-down. Nothing wrong about that. Opportunistic. Opportunistic means, no choice now, we have to go for some tender. So because of that, we have to have KM, then only we will be in the forefront of technology and show that we are competent. So we use the opportunity, the circumstances to do KM. Or it could be rollout pre-designed KM framework. That means, okay, Shell has a KM framework, we copy Shell punya framework, paste kat MSN. Boleh lah. That is what it means. Yeah. Actually tak boleh lah. Not so simple. That's what pre-designed KM framework. Roll out individual KM processes or tools. That means we give you all the tools. That means the vendor come and tell you, okay, Mr. Mushaidi, now don't worry, you listen to Mr. Sanath, he talk nonsense. You just install the software. Next day you have KM, don't worry, KM implemented in your ISN already. That's what we mean by this lah. Is it true? We'll see. Trials and pilots. That means try first lah. Jangan big bang. Big bang means something happen, everything gone, then the whole center become out you go. Now, sad to say, people who do not do trials and pilots, have resulted in a lot of losses. And I think it's common knowledge, even top organizations, even in this country, oil and gas, the first unit which had to leave because of the VSS exercise was the KM center. Why? Because they could not demonstrate value. They could not demonstrate that KM had made a change. Just because everyone talk about KM, you have KM. That's not the right thing, right? So what is the best thing to do now? What do you think? Bottom up, top down, opportunistic, roll out, install a software, or this one trial and pilot? What do you think? We have some suggestions some suggestions. The suggestion is, actually, you can do bottom up and top down. Both of these things are actually good. But particularly people who do rollout and pre-designed KM framework may work if it is done correctly. You know why? Have you heard of the saying, ride on the shoulders of giants? I mean, they have already tried, they have tested, so we just have to adopt the best practice. So that's what I mean by here. So in the case of Konoko, we have done it for many companies in Europe, small scale, medium. So if they have done it in many companies, so you have to ask me, have they done it for the Sports Institute in other countries in Europe? So if they have done it, then can we use that model in that country for ISN? Maybe, maybe. But I like the approach that is taken up here, because the bottom-up approach and now has become top-down has come together. So it's bottom up and top down. But whatever it is, you have to do trials and pilots. Start with a small department, see how it works, learn from the lessons, and then move on to another unit, and then do big bang. So typically it might take 2 to 3 years, or maybe 4 years, before it can be implemented across the company. It could take that long. It's never a short-term approach. And I'm very happy to note that you're sending more people for training, because that is a very good attempt. It's a very serious attempt that you have taken. That is to be congratulated. So typical KM implementation program, if you ask me, starts with the strategy. You must start with the strategy first. After strategy, you start with some planning. How to run the whole show. Because remember, KM is a project. It's a project. And I'm a project manager, so I manage everything like a project. So even KM is a project. And then you do some testing and piloting, and you do rollout, and then you operationalize it across the company. So this entire spectrum might take a couple of years, but you have to start small. And so what's next? I mean, the big question, what do we do now? I mean, we have this, okay. I think let's go back to the basic. We learn how to cultivate the land. You don't cultivate the land, even you put the best seed also, the seed will not grow, right? So we need to cultivate the land. The land must be fertile. Must put some manure. So how do we cultivate the land? What must we have before we start KM? What must we do before we have KM in ISN? That's a big question. Okay, what must we do to cultivate the land? Okay, so there are a few ingredients, a few recipes. First thing is people. You can't avoid it. The first thing is people. We need to have people in terms of awareness of what KM is. Now, this is one session that you're doing that, to build that awareness. And then you need the processes. Because you need to tell people, okay, now these are some steps, some suggested steps. Okay, because we need to know what to do. Then you got the technology coming in. Now we are growing, 500 people. We cannot have the manual approach anymore. We need to have technology. And then, of course, we need governance. Governance is where the management comes in. There's no funding, no support, cannot have KM. So this is where the governance comes in, right? So all these are the 4 ingredients we need for KM. However, from our experience, the people side, we look at HR. The process side, we look at operations. The technology side, we look at IT department. And the governance side, which is the top management, we look at the executive. So you see, all departments are coming in. HR, operation support, IT support, executive support, everything coming in. Announcement to make. Okay, I just got an announcement to make. Alright, I'll wrap it up soon. Right, now the unfortunate thing is that in some companies, KM become an IT technology. I told you the vendor come and install, okay, we have KM now. Right? And then for HR, some company, HR, this is HR project. We have KM. You follow us. This is HR. In some organizations, it's too much detail. But the ideal thing is to have a small department, independent, all 4 as part of the steering committee. So this committee is a representation of all 4 groups of people. So you have a very good representation. So we have done a survey, not us, Mampu done a survey some years back, and they found that this is the state of KM in this country. Okay, I won't read this one, but it's a long time ago, but I think it is to some extent quite valid. They did a survey in all the government institutions, so I won't go through this. Now globally, Knoko also did some survey. Now they said that these are some reasons. They must have strategy, systems not there, lack of measurement, no metrics to measure results, leadership not there, culture not there. These are some of the problems. And the main 2 reasons, I would say, the lack of learning from experience and not able to connect people. These are the 2 reasons which we hope to overcome in KM, basically. 39%, as you can see. So the ultimate aim is to have the learning organization. If you ask me, what is the end game, Sanath? What is the end game? It is to come up with a learning organization. You have already a group of people who are very, very active. You've got your knowledge asset, the sports center, and of course you have other sources of inputs coming in, and all of this working very well. That is the learning organization. I've got a video, but I think because of time, we will keep this a miss. We'll just wrap up the session. Now, to conclude, I think just 1 or 2 slides left. These are some of the reasons, lessons learned, KM implementation worldwide, enabler of KM implementation. Now, the funny thing is, incentive system doesn't help KM. So we wonder that by giving people incentive, it doesn't seem to help KM. You may disagree with me, but apparently this is the lowest reason. So I'm not sure this is a bad news for you or not, but this is the fact. The survey conducted in 52 countries. Okay, the most important reason is support from senior management. I think you're lucky here that support is very evident. So that is the most important thing. Alright, now the maturity level, we have 5 levels here. So, for different level, if someone asks you, which is your level of maturity in ISN, what is your KM level? There are 5 levels here. Obviously, we are not number 1, because we already gone past number 1. People already gone for training and all, which means people know KM. So we are definitely 2 or 3. If it's 3, it's standardized across all departments. But if it's 5, you are continuously innovating to come up with best practices. Pretty much like innovative companies. They have number 5. So the question is, we have to recognize where we are and take measures, initiatives and steps to reach number 5, maturity level. And of course, the end game is to use your system to connect all these different levels, governance, people, process and so on. Of course, to conclude my last slide here, how do you basically improve your maturity level? One is you are sending for training, okay, very good. Having sessions like this, very good. Reach out to companies who can give you that jump start, like what we're doing today. And of course, your good friend Google. Read it, okay, read it. Alright, so in seeing the big picture, I conclude my session today by saying that with better knowledge management comes better understanding. With better understanding comes better attention. With better attention comes better direction. And with better direction comes better outcome. Now this is the cycle of continuous improvement, which is the essence of my talk today. So with that, I'd like to thank ISN for the time given. Feel free to ask me questions if you have this time, otherwise we can move on.
Terima kasih kepada yang dihormati Dr. Sanath Sukumaran atas penyampaian ceramah yang bermanfaat sebentar tadi. Dimohon yang dihormati Dr. Sanath untuk terus kekal di atas pentas bagi acara seterusnya. Majlis dengan sukacitanya sekali lagi ingin menjemput Yang Berbahagia Dr. KPE untuk naik ke pentas bagi upacara penyampaian cenderahati kepada Yang dihormati Dr. Sanath. Terima kasih diucapkan kepada Yang Berbahagia Dr. KPE atas penyampaian cenderahati sebentar tadi.